Can Luffy, Law and Kid together defeat Kaido? Before I start talking about how this fight could play out, first let's look at the power levels and the rules of the One Piece world. In some of my recent videos about the power levels and fight analysis, I did notice that a lot of you guys think that there is a huge gap between the supernovas and the admirals or the yonkos. And you don't think that any of them can defeat an admiral or a yonko. And I agree with you. But I don't think this man agrees with you. By any chance that you don't know who this man is, then you are on the wrong channel. Go away. As I said at the beginning, in this video I will talk about the power levels and the rules of the One Piece world that Oda has set up when it comes to fights. And a lot of the times the rules are more important than the power levels. To give you an example, the power levels do not mean much to the main character. One of the reasons why is due to the fact that the story has to move forward, and that's why the main character must win. This is the easy way to write the story. There are times when writers refuse to take the easy way, but then they risk of making the story complicated and might lose the casual fans. Which is quite unfortunate, because at the end of the day, these stories are published by businesses and not non-profit organizations. And in business, the profit always takes priority. This problem that the writers face is all due to some fans reading or watching these stories with the same mentality of a sports fan, where you support only one team and you want that team to win all the time. But it is completely different when it comes to these stories. You should support all the characters and not just one, because after all these characters are made by the same writer. And all of them are equally important to the story, in the same way as the pieces of a chain. If one of them is broken, then the chain is useless. The only way how you can enjoy and appreciate a story 100% is if you care about all the characters and not just one. This is the only way how you can appreciate the entire hard work of the writer. He does put the same effort for all the characters and not just one. If Oda did not have to follow this system, then I am sure that the story would have been different. For example, I think that after the time skip he would have given each of the supernovas their own arc. Whether it is 5 chapters long or 10 or more, that would depend on what the story needs. It is a shame that these writers spend their whole life honing their skills, but unfortunately they cannot show their full potential. This is like a chef that is allowed to cook only one type of meal because the customers are demanding the same thing over and over again. Even though the chef can cook all kinds of meals and he knows better than them. Anyway, one other thing that is worth pointing out about Kaido when it comes to the power levels and the rules of the One Piece world is that when it comes to physical strength, Kaido is the strongest in the world. Oda did make it clear a couple of times. But Oda here is being tricky, and a lot of people did fall for it. Oda deserves huge praise for that. This is high level writing. Let me explain what I am talking about. In terms of power levels, Kaido is at the top, and it is normal to think that he would win against anyone in the world. But Kaido has lost 7 times. So does this mean that Kaido is not the strongest in the world? And this is where the rules of the story override the power levels. Kaido is the strongest, but if he fought someone who is smarter than him and he lost to him, then it is not because he is not the strongest, but he is not as smart as his opponent. The other thing that Oda was very clever was that when the Mad Monk was talking about Kaido, he said, if it is one-on-one, then Kaido would win. The key words here are not that Kaido would win, but that if it is one-on-one. And this is very clever of Oda because that way he will not be trapped in a corner in the future when he will need for Kaido to be defeated in the story. Since already is established in the rules of the story that Kaido, the strongest creature in the world, will win, but only if it is one-on-one. If it is not, then anything can happen. So no one can complain about that, because even though in terms of power levels, Kaido is at the top, but the rules of the story are the most important thing. So that's why I said Oda deserves praise for that. Anyway, I do expect Kaido to be part of the war from the beginning, and he will take damage throughout the war. It will be interesting to see Kaido fight the Minks in their Sulong form. I think they can give him a hard time since their fighting styles are similar and they have both insane physical strength. It could be that other supernovas will fight Kaido as well, but in this video I am only focusing on these 3. In the Dressrosa arc, Zoro did not fight Don Flamingo, only Luffy and Law did fight him, and it could be the same in Wano. But this time I think Kid will join them as well. Here's how this fight could play out and how they can win against Kaido. As I said earlier, I do expect Kaido to take damage throughout the war, otherwise they don't stand a chance. The reason why I think they can pull this off is their powers. They complement each other. Let's say the fight has started against Kaido. In order not to get hit by Kaido, Law needs to be very vigilant and keep teleporting himself and Luffy and Kid around Kaido, so he cannot hit them, because we saw what happens when you get hit by Kaido. It's game over. And this will frustrate Kaido that he cannot hit them. It is not explained why Kaido's body is so strong, but I don't think that he is invincible. And the proof of that is that scar on his body, and the fact that he did lose 7 times, so he can be defeated. But nonetheless, Kaido's body is very, very strong. But so is metal. And this is when Kid comes into play. He needs to use his power to soften Kaido's defensives. If he does manage to hit Kaido, then he will take damage. We saw with Big Mom that there are times when her body is vulnerable, when she is not in control. And the same could be with Kaido, and this is when Luffy comes into play. Since all of his attacks are physical attacks, his attacks will cause the biggest damage on Kaido after Kid has created an opening. Among the three, Luffy has the strongest body and his fighting style is all about physical attacks, and also since he can increase his body size, he can generate the most power. I made a theory a while ago where I said that Gear 5 will be called Giant Man, and it will be a combination of all the gears. It will be like the ultimate form. The link to that theory is in the description. So this is how they will fight Kaido. Law needs to keep moving them around in order not to get hit, dodging Kaido's attacks and place them in a position where they can attack Kaido. Kid will attack first to create an opening and soften Kaido's body, and then Luffy will hit Kaido with the most powerful attacks that he has. And they need to repeat this over and over until Kaido will fall. And this would make sense. But remember what I said about the formulas that the writer is forced to use when it comes to the main character. So it is very likely that during the battle towards the end, Kid will fall before Kaido, and then it will be just Luffy and Law and they will continue to fight. And then Law will fall as well. So at the end it will be just the main character versus Kaido. At this point, Kaido is barely standing, so that's why Luffy will be able to continue to fight alone. And then Kaido will fall and people will credit only Luffy. He will be known as the one who did defeat Kaido, and Kaido will have 8 defeats on his record. Thanks for watching, like, share and subscribe for more One Piece videos, and see you in the next video.